Thank you so much for turning out. What an amazing turnout. You can, I'm going to go up here because I'm getting feedback. You can tell when Toronto doesn't have any sports teams in the playoffs. Everybody comes out to public meetings. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We have an amazing team that's going to be helping us over the next few days come up with a vision for the west end of Wasaga Beach. I think this is probably something that is long overdue. And we want to do this by engaging all of you, and Ian and Andrea, who will be introduced in a few minutes, will walk you through the process we're going to follow. But we're going to listen. We're going to try and reflect what all of you would like to see out in the West End, and we're going to come up with a plan really quickly. And believe it or not, in a couple days, on Thursday evening, Ian and Andrea are going to share that plan with all of you. So it's going to happen really fast, which I think is a good thing. I'm going to turn it over to the mayor just to give a couple opening remarks, and then we'll get rolling with Ian and Andrea.
Thank you, Andrew. Good evening, everybody. Wow. It's I got to tell you, I'm really surprised to see this many people here, but very happy to see this many people here. Ladies and gentlemen, we've heard loud and clear, your members of council, that often the people in the West End feel like they've been forgotten in Wasaga Beach. And so I'm here to tell you that you haven't been forgotten by this council, that you're very much remembered, and it's why it's important that we're doing this, and it's the reason we're doing this charrette, so is that we can hear from you. As a matter of fact, the last official plan for Wasaga Beach, which is about 20 years old, I think you have maybe a page and a half, don't hold me exactly, but about a page and a half or two in the whole plan. And clearly, at that point in time, the West End was not very prominent within the community. So we want to make sure that in this official plan that we hear you. We do the very best we can to make sure you're included, and that you're seeing that plan unfold to the best of our ability, trying to make everybody happy. And so we have got the best team we could find, one of the best in the world, Ian and Andrea. They're here. They're going to be your hosts for this. And they're going to work with you in order to put this together, to bring this back to our staff, and then, of course, back to council, and get this next official plan completed. So thank you very much for coming out and taking part and caring about the community. We truly appreciate it. And let's get on with the night and start planning for the West End of Wasaga Beach.
Thank you, sir. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming out. It's great to see such a large turnout. So tonight, we're going to begin a planning process. It's called a charrette. It's very intense. So we're going to be here all day, all night until Thursday night, working on ideas for the West End. My name is Ian Lockwood. I'm with Tool Design Group, and I'm what we call a livable transportation engineer. So my role in life is to help design street networks and developments to expand cities in a way that aligns with the community vision. The other half of the team is Andrea Ostratka. She's at the back. She's an urban designer. And between the two of us, we probably have over 60 years of experience doing this. And we work in little towns and big cities and everything in between. I think it's nice to work in smaller places because you can see the effects quicker as opposed to bigger cities. And so you're expanding, you're expecting to double your population in the next little while, and you want to expand according to your vision. What we probably don't want to do is just allow market forces to play out and just have it develop the way it would if you didn't take any action at all. So what we want to do is learn about your values and your ideas and allow that to help shape the future. You can have the future happen to you, and you can say, roll up the sidewalks, I don't want anything to change. But change is coming. People have property rights. There's developers coming. They own land. They have applications into the city. So the idea is to allow the community to help shape the future of the community as it grows in accordance with your vision, so that you preserve your values and what's important to you. So that's what this night is about, is starting to establish that vision, and so we can make a plan that aligns with that vision. And to some extent, I would suggest that we're a bit of a translation service. We're going to be doing an exercise tonight about values, and what we want to do is translate those values into the direction for the West End. And so there'll be a couple opportunities for you to come back and help shape that. If we're off on an unproductive tangent, you can help steer us back, and I'll go into that in a moment. So we're starting today. Today we had a tour of the area, and we met with city staff. We got our bearings, and tomorrow we're going to be meeting with stakeholders, leaders of neighborhood associations, property owners, some city staff, all sorts of people who have direct stakes in the West End. And there's also an opportunity tomorrow afternoon, I'll go into that in a moment, where you can come back and look over our shoulder and see what's going on and see if we're on the right track or not. So these are the 3 opportunities to participate. And here we are tonight doing our visioning workshop. And then tomorrow afternoon, right here in this building, but just down the hall, we have a studio set up, and you can come in and talk to either Andrea or myself anytime between 5 o'clock and 7 p.m. Don't everyone come at 5 o'clock. If you come in, you can come in for 5 minutes, 15 minutes, you can come the whole time. There's no presentation or anything, so tomorrow it's informal. Just come in, look around, share any ideas or comments or concerns or thoughts you might have with either one of us. Listen in on other conversations, see what we have on the maps, and just react to what you see and suggest whatever you want. So it's very informal, and it's for all 2 hours, so you can come at any time during that time. And then on Thursday, we're going to share with you our concepts and our ideas. And Andrew mentioned it'll be like a plan, but keep in mind that it will need its tires kicked, it will need vetting, but it'll be our best attempt at translating what everyone here tonight suggests as their values into a physical design of the space out in the West End that we think takes your values and aligns it to the geography, to the ground out there. And so you can come, and that's also an opportunity for feedback. It's not a final thing at all. So you can tell us if we got it right, we got it wrong, and help us steer it so that it aligns with your values as closely as feasible. So that's the process. So this is us, this is Tool Design Group. We're made up of engineers and planners and urban designers. We have a research group that researches the development of cities and how to do it in an equitable and context-sensitive way. We write a lot of standards and books about how to shape cities as they grow. And this is our president, Jennifer Toole. And we have our own 3 E's: empathy, equity, and ethics. So the values of the firm is we actually care about all the folks that live in towns and cities, from little kids to elderly people to people with disabilities to people who drive, people who don't drive, people who use transit. We care deeply about all the different folks who live in the towns and cities. We believe in equity, whether you're riding a bicycle or walking or driving. We want the streets to accommodate everybody comfortably. And we believe in ethics. So it's not just about doing things right, it's about doing the right things. And so we really want to avoid what has happened in other little towns where developers develop in a manner that creates a very car-dependent place, and it does a lot of harm to the quality of life in the older parts of the city. So these are the things we want to ameliorate. So we want to do the right things and then do those right as well. So that's me, Ian Lockwood. I'm a transportation engineer, and this is Andrea Ostradka. And tonight we'll be wandering around between the tables we'll be doing some group work. So hopefully there's like 5 to 8 people at each table, and we'll be doing some work together. And we'll be so if you see one of us, it's because we're here to help, actually. So this is about the timelines, and whoever's good at math, you'll notice it doesn't line up to the whole full time. Some of these might go over, some of them may not, but we'll try and finish on time, maybe even ahead of time. So we've been introduced. I'm doing a little briefing, and then we'll get on with our hands-on exercise. And then after that, each group will, or as many groups as we can get to, will present your ideas to the whole room. And so ask in your group who has good penmanship, and hopefully on your table you have a thick pen, and there'll be 4 pieces of paper, and I'll tell you about what we're going to do with those in a minute. So this is the study area. This is the primary study area, I should say. It goes from about 62nd Street all the way along 26 to Fairgrounds Road, and all the way to the beach. And there's a couple of anomalies, like the town boundary comes out across here on Airport. Was it Airport Drive? I can't remember. Airport Road. So that's the primary study area. But don't feel constrained by those strict boundaries. That's what we're calling the West End. But there's the area here. If there's something around here that you think influences that area, that you think is important, make a note of it or jot it down. Tell us what you think. So don't feel constrained by the strict boundaries of the West End, because you affect things around you, and those things around you affect the West End as well. Does that make sense? It's a planning exercise, and you can't do a successful place if you just focus in on your strict boundaries. And these are the things we kind of want to avoid. We want to, if we do nothing, if we don't plan, if we don't think ahead, farmers will sell their fields, and they'll end up developing in these sort of disconnected sort of cul-de-sac loop and lollipop patterns. And the only streets that will remain that actually go anywhere are these old farm-to-market roads. And if that happens, those will get really, really busy with car traffic and end up creating issues as it comes into the older parts of town. So one of the things that we want to get better at is anticipating what's happening over the next 10, 50, 100 years, and start planning for these connections as these places expand, so that we don't paint ourselves into a corner. Because you can imagine if that were to be duplicated here and here and here, there'd be no way to get an east-west street through here. And then all the motorists would have to use that street, or 26, or one of the few east-west streets you have. And of all the things in your town, that's probably a weakness, is it's your east-west connectivity. You have very, very few streets. And if we don't think about that, all the traffic that goes east-west will have to use those very, very few streets, and they'll get inundated. And already, the roads along the waterfront, east-west, are really quite busy. And I imagine for those of you who have been here a long time, you've seen a big change in the traffic volumes. And so those need some help with some parallel network. Does anybody recognize what kind of animal this is? Just shout it out if you recognize it. A horse, yeah, it's a horse. And I always ask, has anyone actually seen a horse skeleton in real life? No, you haven't, eh? Okay. Okay, I'll ask you about a more complicated question here. What animal is this? It looks like an alligator, but I'll give you a hint. It's a mammal that almost looks like an alligator. Swims around in warm water very slowly. A crocodile's not a mammal. Platypus, that's close, marsupial. It's a manatee. So when you compare a horse and a manatee, they're very similar in a lot of ways. They both are mammals, they both have kidneys, they both breathe air, they give live birth, they both have hearts, they both eat grass. So there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of similar parts. But because of the bone structure, the horse can run around on the ground, and the manatee has to swim leisurely in water. And cities have a bone structure too. They have a lot of similarities. Both these cities have houses, stores, streets, offices, parks. But because of their structure, they have completely different outcomes. Does anybody recognize this, by the way, where this is? It's a pretty famous street network for those of you who are into planning. No, it's not New York, but it's old. It's that sort of time period, long time ago. Boston. It's Savannah, Georgia. So it dates back to the 1700s. It's one of the very first settlements in North America. And they built this very fine-grained street network. Anybody recognize this place? It's some suburban place, right? And it really doesn't matter because you would never want to live here, because if there's anything happens at this intersection, the whole thing shuts down, right? It's very vulnerable. If anything happens at this intersection, nobody notices. And motorists go through here slowly. If there's a crash, it's probably low speed and no one got hurt. If there's a crash on this street, probably someone got injured. This one is completely car dependent, and it's very illegible. If you live on that street, if you want to go north, you have to go south, then west, then south, then east, then north. Here, you just go whichever direction you want. There's multiple routing options. On that side, everyone has to use that big road. It happens to be Irvine, California, for those of you who don't. But so that kind of cinches it that you know now that you'd never want to bother going there to visit, right? But you'd go here. It's very walkable. It's very beautiful. So fine-grained block structure, like your city grew up on, if you look in your downtown, helps distribute the land uses in a human scale. You go down some of the streets along the waterfront, they're little parcels, most of them, and that's your heritage, that's your background. With very few streets, it ends up attracting really large format development, which is unwalkable and car dependent. And when you assign your traffic to the streets, all the traffic has to use the big road, which makes it into a barrier and difficult for people to walk and cross and that kind of thing. Here, there's lots of routing options, and so you get a more livable human scale. And so that's what we're talking about as your city your town turns into a city and starts to expand. You want to really think about the size of your blocks to keep it that human scale that you grew up with. So there's Savannah, 1883, and that's it today. And it's held its value. And the reason it held its value is because of its bones, its street network. So this is how it was laid out in 1733 with this fine-grained block structure all along the waterfront. And as the city grew, this is 1800, you can see it's stretched along the waterfront. Now, does this remind you of somewhere? It should remind you of here, because that's exactly what happened in Savannah. But 200 and something years ago. And as the city grew in, it kept its connectivity, its block structure, and this is fairly recently, 1945, it still kept it in its historic neighborhoods. So the whole place operates at a human scale, which I think if I lived here after doing the tour, that's one of the sort of values I would have, is that kind of human scale connected to the land. So the idea is, with a fine-grained block structure, it's easier to get around on foot, by bike, and even by car. You have lots of routing options. When you group all the traffic onto just a few big streets, it's kind of like, this is a staircase. I guess you could walk up it, but it's more difficult than a human scale staircase. So that's kind of the idea. This is that famous drawing from Leonardo da Vinci from 1400. And his idea was that furniture and buildings are all designed to the human scale. Even streets were designed to human scale. The average block length had about a 400 meter circumference or perimeter to make it a walkable perimeter for your blocks. So the whole city was designed for human beings, just like Wasaga Beach. And this is his updated drawing, which the scale changed, of course, to the motor vehicle. And when you get to that kind of scale, it's not a human scale anymore, and you have to drive long distances to do anything. And the common denominator that links everything together is the car, and every place has tons of parking, and so you lose that charm and that granularity that you grew up with. So there's the study area again, and the idea is, think about how you'd like this place to be shaped over time, and then we'll try and do as much of that into streets and blocks and so forth and connectivity as we can. And so we're going to ask you to answer 4 questions. And on your table, and we'll turn the lights up as well too, you'll see a map so you can point at things. And you'll have 4 sheets of paper, and elect a I don't know what you call it, scribe, or someone who knows how to print nicely from, remember your grade 3 penmanship stuff? Have that person write your notes, and we're going to answer 4 key questions, 1 question per page. The first question is, what do you like about the West End that you want to see preserved? What's special to you? And then list that out, and it could be the scale, the speed, the trees, the quietness, anything that you think you like about that place, answer there. And that will really help us to know what you want in other places as the place grows. The second thing is what you dislike, what you don't like about the area that you'd like to see changed. If something bothers you, or you just simply don't like it, list it out so we know what you don't like. Now, we always start with what people like, because otherwise they spend all the time on what they don't like. So we want to ask you the positive question first, but then answer what you dislike. Then think about what's missing. Are there things in that area of town that you would like to see happen? And it could be anything. If you live in a food desert, maybe it's a grocery store. Whatever's missing, if there is anything missing, let us know, and we'll try and find a space for it, or a quality. Maybe it's the quality of the street. Maybe there's not enough sidewalks or not enough bike facilities. Maybe it's maybe you want all the power lines buried, or something like that. Anything that you think's missing. And then the last question, question 4, is the key values that you think the town and we should keep in mind when we're looking at the maps and drawing. So what's important? Is it family friendly? Is it human scale? What are the values that should shape this place? Is it slower speeds? All the sorts of things that are important to you. And we'll look at all those 4 questions, and it'll help us shape things. So put 1 set of questions or answers on each of the 4 pieces of paper, and we'll give you 40, 45 minutes to work together, 10 or 15 minutes per answer. Just collaborate amongst yourselves. And then at the end, when the time is done, we're going to have, I don't know if we'll have time for all the tables, but we'll pick a random selection of tables to present your answers to the rest of the room. And we'll see what people came up with. So are those instructions good? Okay, let's see what else we have here. Oh yeah, and just a reminder, to come tomorrow at any time between 5 and 7, and then come back, same place, same bat channel, same bat time on Thursday right here from 7 to 9, and we'll go over what we came up with. And with that, maybe we could get the lights up, and that was my last slide, yeah. So we'll leave these up the whole time, and just go ahead and answer the questions, and we'll be floating around. Thank you. sorry. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Okie dokie, everybody. So could I have your attention for 1 second? This is your 9-minute warning. So you have till 10 minutes after 8 to finish what you're doing, and then we'll do the presentations, okay? So 10 after 8, pens down at 10 after 8, okay? Thank you. Okie dokie. So it's time to put down your pens soon, because what we're going to do now is we're going to pick a group, and everyone's going to have to give that group their attention and listen to what they came up with. So we have a very active group over here. Excuse me, folks. Time to put down your pencils and pens. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick the first group, and I'd like everyone to give them your attention, because we've all worked hard tonight on our 4 questions, and hear what they have to say. And then we'll go around and pick some other groups at random and see what folks came up with. And what's going to happen is you'll pick a spokesperson from your group, and someone else will hold up your questions one at a time. And you have 2 or 3 minutes to briefly run through your answers, and then we'll move to the next group. Okay, so let's pick a table at random. Let's pick this table right here. And Andrea's coming over, so everyone please pay attention and listen to what they have to share.
If we could have one person stand up and hold the paper, and another that can go through the details.
Just stand anywhere there. That's good.
So are you gonna, or, okay, I'm gonna hold the microphone.
Yeah, you want to come with me? Yeah, sure. We have to stand up? Let's just stay here. Okay. So what we're going to talk about is what we like in the town. And what our feelings are is that this is a very unique town in a lot of different ways, especially with the longest freshwater beach in the world. I think that gives us a really good start point in terms of what we are and what we have to preserve. With the longest freshwater beach in the world, obviously we've got a habitat that's original for a lot of the birds and fauna and flora, and we want to really take a look at how we're going to preserve that, especially with some of the new things that are happening in terms of subdivisions and how that's going to look. We're a little bit opposed to more cookie cutter things happening that is the same as what you'd see in every other subdivision in every other city. So we would like to preserve what we've got in terms of some of these old neighborhoods and see if we can superimpose that on some of the new developments. We love a lot of the original cottage country feel. We love having the beach access. We love some of those big old trees that we've got. We're very concerned about what's happening already with some of those big trees. So we'd like to figure out how we can preserve what everything looks like. Can everybody hear me? Yeah? Oh, good. Because I've got a lot to say. Easy road access for where I am, it's really wonderful because I've got a very unique spot. I can easily access the beach as well as the main throughways. I know down on Mosley Street that's not the case. But it's really nice where we are because every other street is a beach access. And I think that that's really important, that especially for tourism and for all of us that live there, that we still are able to get to the beach. Small town values, what is it that we like about the small towns? I think it's a community-based thing. I think that where we are, we're able to know all of our neighbors. We know generations of the neighbors. We're very familiar with the properties. And for me, I'd really like to preserve that. Okay, is that everything that I like? Okay, I'm going to go on just one more second. I really like the fact that where we are, there's actually no sidewalks and there's no overhead lighting. And what that means is that it's a very walkable neighborhood. So you can walk down the middle of our street and not run across a car. You can walk your dogs without a leash down the middle of the street. I don't always suggest that, but you can. Down the middle of the street, again, the fact that we don't have a lot of overhead lighting means that the birds and things like that have a very different way of interacting, which is really interesting. If you're going to a place like South Carolina, they're very cognizant of light pollution and how it affects nature, and I think that we have to be aware of that as well. do we have to go through, do you want us to go through all the questions, or do you want me, oh, briefly? Okay.
Like 2 to 3.
Oh, 2 or 3 things. Okay, what would you dislike and what would you like to see changed? I think that one of the things that I think we could probably all agree on is the, oh, like this? Okay. I think one of the things that is really interesting for Wasaga Beach is that it doesn't really look like a beautiful town. I think that happens right from the get-go when you come in through the main thoroughfare at the roundabout, that even our gateway does not look great, and then as you're going down Mosley Street, you've got a pollution of signs and things like that. So, you know, we don't present well. And I think for a tourism town, we really have to be aware of that and how we can make it something that's beautiful. We'd like to have more options for youth in terms of playgrounds. We would like to have more alternate transportation, meaning that, you know, bike lanes and things like that, walkable cities are all integrated into some of these new plans. What that means, of course, is, you know, wide sidewalks, bike lanes that are safe, places to sit for people who are walking along the streets. Not enough access to Highway 26, so maybe more roundabouts, things like that. New architecture. So we talked a little bit about that. We would like to try to keep things that are, again, consistent. So maybe what we're looking at is branded colors. So, sorry? Oh, okay. So branded colors, but that means that you're muted with everything. So again, I'm going to go back to South Carolina where even McDonald's or some of the other stores, everything had to be in tune with nature so that when you're looking at a whole street, whether even its big box, it looks like it's part of nature. They left their signature trees in the parking lot, which is really great. Their street signs were very low, so your headlights hit the streets. It's not an overhead lighting. So, you know, thinking about how we work in the city, but also how nature is, and working with that. What else do we have to cover here? Okay, I'll try to be brief. What's missing? We're looking for affordable housing for young buyers and what they're looking for. We need a lot more employment opportunities, walkable spaces, we've talked about that. Hiking trails, we would really love to see things that connect us to the cities around us. So, you know, bike trails are a big thing for that. We're looking at, you know, like even pollinating cities, bee cities, things like that all around us. We've got communities that are very invested in doing that, and we need to connect with them and not try to be just one little silo, but understand what's happening around us and connect with that and work together. Again, you know, I keep going back to nature, but all of these things work in corridors, so we can't be isolated in these initiatives. Grocery stores, we need more grocery stores, especially at the West End. Just brief, there you go.
Yeah, so basically, again, most of this is just we want access to nature because whether or not we like it, this town is associated with nature. We make a lot of our profit from us being one of the biggest freshwater beach in the world. So again, why are we isolating ourselves from the nature when we could be integrating the nature into our town and showing that this is part of our town, and at the same time we could create a more greener town that can probably create some of its own energy, and that way we would become less reliant on the power grid, and we could just, again, we're missing a lot of that access to nature and the access to this next generation. And our key values. Top level, clearly, again, access to nature, top line, always. We're a historically significant town. We have a history, we have people who have done things, we have things that have happened to our town. Nobody knows about it. Students don't really learn about it. We may have signage somewhere, but it's always in an isolated space. There is probably, what I know of, there is one sign off the bridge that tells a little bit about the history of our town, and that's about it, and I'm not even 100% sure the sign is still standing. We basically just, our key values are that we are natural and that we are important and that we are special because of our beach. So let's preserve those main three things in the next developments so that more people can enjoy it and more people can bring more money into the town.
Well said.
Let's give a round of applause to table number 1. All right, let's see. Who wants to, you guys want to go next? So table number 2 is going next.
And I can hold the mic for who's going to talk. Okay, okay.
Will be shorter. I know, so. Hello. Okay. Actually, a lot of what we wrote, this table wrote already. So, what to preserve? The trailer park community down in this at the far east end of the west end. Access to the beach, preserving the trees, keeping cottage courts, having more than one route to Collingwood, and keeping low-rise housing. Try not to have big apartment buildings. What we don't like at the moment is the cost of parking at the provincial parks is very high, and there is actually no public parking and access to the beach in the West End. So we would like to have more a municipal beach area there. It's really hard to turn onto Mosley Street or Beechwood Road when there's traffic, and so maybe some more traffic deadening facilities would be great. And then more access to Highway 26, because you can only get on at Wasaga or in Collingwood, and in between you have to drive either to one end or the other. So that's what we would like to change. So what's missing? So public parking, services, groceries, restaurants, coffee shops, pharmacy, medical services, a community center, a municipal beach, as I mentioned, more bike trails, sidewalks, different access to the casino, because the one access is very hard to drive to, and more walking trails. Lastly, from a values perspective, we'd like the area to become more accessible for the disabled and seniors, be very family friendly, keep it small town feel, and have room for both residents and visitors so we can merge together and enjoy each other's company.
Thank you to table number 2. Now, you'll probably notice that there is some overlap between tables, but that's good. So if you do have things that overlap, you can be brief, but we need to hear what you agree on as well. So let's pick another table. How about you guys here? You could be table number 3, perhaps? Thank you.
Yeah? Oh, yeah, perfect. Sure.
So our little table is from the Brock Beach community. You may have seen our website, savebeechwood.ca. So we have our own view living in the shadow of the possibility of 2 6-story condominium towers. What we like about our community, what we love about our community are the trees, the nature trails. We like our low density housing. We want to preserve the existing wetlands and these cute little beach accesses that you see scattered amongst our community that are looked after by the people in our community. We have a resident that puts out the garbage, that takes in the garbage, that we clean up our beach accesses. We like that. We don't want 1,000 people on our beach access. We like the limited traffic. We don't have sidewalks. We have lots of elderly. We have lots of dogs and children. And we like our small community feel, which we've heard already. So that's what we'd like to see. What do we dislike? We like the disrespect for nature, wetlands that are proposed to be destroyed behind our homes, trees, and wildlife that lives in those wetlands. What I personally dislike the most is the uncertainty that's created in our community right now by a patchwork of development applications for condominium towers, high density X, townhouse developments, parking lots, huge parking lots right in my backyard. The flooding, which will only get worse with the wetland destruction, because as we all researched when we were getting ready for our public meeting, what the wetlands do is they act as a buffer, and they stop the flooding in a lot of our homes. We hate our ditches as opposed to having swales, and congestion. The congestion that would be created by all of this construction in our area. And I personally do not like the developers altering the land prior to their approvals, tearing down trees, creating parking lots in wetland areas. Brock's Beach is, it's in Wasaga Bay, around 74th. It goes from 74th to the end of Shore Lane. So all along Shore Lane, from 74th to the end. Sorry, I didn't hear you. Yeah.
Kind of from
74th to the end, like it's actually before. 72nd? Kathy knows. Kathy knows. 71st, sorry. Question 3, what is missing? Parkland and public use spaces. We don't have anything like that in the West End. There's no soccer fields or parks for kids to play. We would love to see retail in the casino area, grocery stores like Kathy talked about. How many times have people gone to the superstore and the shelves are bare? Meats are empty. If you add on how many thousands of people into our area and they're all going to the superstore, how empty are those shelves going to be for us? We'd love to see more trails, which is what people have mentioned, and bylaw enforcement. We don't see enough bylaw enforcement in the West End. Let's see, and key values. Conservation, wetlands, wildlife, Georgian Bay. We like to maintain our small community values and our low traffic levels, keep our existing community feel, and not high density. Any development, we understand there has to be houses created, but we would like to see any new development separated by a buffer from the existing low density. And that's ours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see, would you folks like to share what you came up with at this table? Pick a spokesperson and pick someone to hold the pieces of paper. So you can see that there's some overlapping values already. This is really encouraging. So a lot of you have been having very similar conversations at each of the tables, so this is great.
Not to be repetitive, but yes, a number of these issues have been discussed already, but under the preserve wetlands and woodlands, of course, help to promote the quietness of the neighborhoods, water access, overall water quality, low density housing, that's been spoken of several times. The type of homes, basically, yeah, single family. Public transport, although there is transport in Wasaga already, but improvements could be made, I suppose, based on the population base. The trail between our neck of the woods and the shoreline, that's Betty and Bayswater and into Shore Lane. There is a dead end at Betty, but we'll get into that some other time. And natural heritage environmental protected land. Yeah. Whatever is out there already, as to be protected, or is protected, to keep it protected. There's an area off of Beechwood that is an environmental area, but it's in limbo right now, apparently. Gerard knows about that. Getting into the dislikes, well, the high traffic on Beechwood, I think a lot of people know about Beechwood, the traffic. You can't do 70 on that road anymore, you get constantly passed. And nobody understands the white line on the side of the highway. Don't pass on the right. But that's up to the OPP to monitor, and I wish they would. Water drainage and flooding. Well, we did have a flood back in the spring of 18, and that was pretty quickly resolved by the city, thank you. Open ditches, that's been discussed earlier as well. Short-term rentals, in some areas it's becoming a big issue. It's on the table already with the city, I think. Of course, there are no bicycle lanes, no identified bicycle lanes as such, especially on Beechwood. No sidewalk also on Beechwood, speed limit on Beechwood. Trucks on Beechwood, it's another story. And vacant homes, although the province is supposed to be working on that, a lot of vacant homes that are good for housing for somebody somewhere. Sorry, babe, can't just drop it. Parkland, under the missing category, parkland, we need some parkland. That was, I think I just referenced earlier by someone. Retail convenience stores, yeah, exactly. Cafe. Cycling lanes, well, we had that. And a turning lane on Beechwood. In other words, make Beechwood 3 lanes so the middle lane becomes a turning lane. And environmental assessment for certain areas to ensure that they stay environmentally protected. Next one, babe. There we go. And into values. Values, we want to see steady green spaces, parking, and playgrounds. Protect the wildlife as well. Water quality definitely has to be protected. And I can't read that. Local character, keep the character of the neighborhoods. That was a nice reference. And nature first. Grow what we can grow, preferably. Not with Phragmite. That's about it, folks.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have time for one more. Maybe let's go over to this area. Would you folks mind sharing what you came up with? Are you ready to share?
We're fine, but we probably have similar ones to these people down here, and we've agreed with
Okay.
almost everything everybody said.
Can you repeat that?
Thank you. I can talk loud, but people have heard me before. Okay. Trees, open space with trees. We need parkland, you're right. We need designated protected areas that aren't looked after right now at all. Peace and quiet, we'd like it to stay, but we enjoy fun too. Low density, I think, is a necessity out this way. Why do we need to look like an urban Toronto? I don't think we do need that. We like our walking trails, they're great. What do we dislike and wish to see changed? Better traffic flow, that's the big one. Getting around has never been easy in Wasaga Beach, for those of you who've been here for a long time. Narrow streets, we have problems with those. People can't get by on a lot of our streets. Trailer parks need to be monitored. I know some of the trailer parks are really well looked after. 4 lanes on Moseley or a turning lane is going to be a necessity. So as you see, the things that you like are the things we want to change. What is missing? Wider streets, more east-west streets. Moseley will need to be redeveloped if we, out here in the West End, are going to get anywhere. Small commercial areas is a necessity. We agree with you. Small shops, we want something that looks good, boutique style, like a Stanton store or an Ashanti coffee shop, something like that. Our key values. Safety is one of the important ones. Getting along Beechwood we need bike lanes, sidewalks, places for people to walk safely, and they need to say what they are. So cars don't, I'm one of the worst, so cars don't go along the side. Height restrictions for apartments and any future commercial buildings. Height restrictions, I believe, need to be lower than I have heard, and that we have been discussing. I don't think we need apartment buildings out here. They will be bought by people who can afford them, and they'll put people in who can't afford them. So unless you can actually provide something that is good in way of low-cost housing, don't do it. Stacked townhouses and things like that in this area will just turn into slums. Just so they happened in Barrie. Okay, the infrastructure needs to be well planned in advance. Thank you very much. And in conjunction with the development, we need all this other stuff. One of the things we're really concerned about is the water drainage. It was done very badly. Nobody ever seems to care about it for some reason, and I think that's one thing the town has to look after. The water drainage, once they've started to dig across the road on Beechwood from Blue Water, water has started to puddle and pour into our development just by a little bit of digging. So they've got to plan how they're going to drain that properly. Anyway, I think that's about all I can say.
So in the interest of time, I think we'll stop doing the presentations. But you notice the overlapping, right? So I think you have a pretty good consensus already on a lot of topics. I'll just go over some of the stuff that I heard a lot was things like the trees, the habitats, the scale, the small town feel, bike lanes. I think 3 or 4 tables said better access to 26 with more roundabouts. Fitting in through colors and trees, affordability, trails, history, access to nature. Let's see, community field. Yeah, there's a lot of overlap. And we're going to record everything that everyone wrote down, even if you didn't get a chance to share it. And we'll reflect it back to you in some manner. Parkland, retail, better access to casino. So access seems to be a big issue. Access to the waterfront casino, 26, that kind of thing. The water, the flooding. Let's see, nature first, like trees, open space, peace and quiet, handling density in a context-sensitive way. Dealing with traffic issues. We're going to go into that in depth in this project because that's probably going to be a huge challenge moving forward. Safety. We heard how many times people wanted bike lanes and sidewalks. Anyway, so there's a lot of overlap in addition to what I just went over. So we're going to take all of this input and we're going to look at the patterns and we're going to summarize that and try and design some changes for the future in the planning to reflect those values. This is kind of like our mandate, if you will. We're going to look at what might be contradictory, like one group said better traffic flow, but on the other hand, you want to be more accessible and walkable and that kind of thing. So there's some things we're going to have to think about how to balance these, sort of some of the competing interests. And so just a reminder on next steps. Tomorrow, come at any time in these 2 hours. Please don't all come at 5 o'clock because there's only 2 of us. And just look over our shoulder, see what's going on, look at the maps. We'll be in the room at that end of the building. That's where we're set up to do the studio. And then come back here on Thursday, and you'll see what we came up with over these days. So just to wrap up, I want to thank all of you for coming, first of all, and I want to thank the city staff for organizing this and getting us the venue, and I think they did a great job, so let's give them an applause for their work. And to build a great town, it takes a village. Okay, thanks. That's my joke for tonight. But so it does take a village. It takes a lot of people. You've got some very dedicated staff people helping us as well. So please participate in the next events and help us steer this development of this town in a manner that you like. And we'll see what happens, tomorrow and the rest of the week. And hopefully by the end we'll have a pretty good consensus on the direction for the area. So thanks for coming tonight, and hopefully see you tomorrow. Thanks.